Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to tell you why do games cost so much money and how can you calculate the cost of a game. I'm sure each and every one of us has read at some point of time that this game costed so much of development cost and budget and time. And you must be wondering, where does all this money go? I mean, if you're saying that GTA 6 is going to cost $2 billion of cost of development, where is that money going? So in this video, we're going to decode each and every detail of that. So ensure that you're watching this video till the very end so that you don't miss out on any critical information that I'm presenting to you. Primarily because if you want to start on your game development journey, this is a very critical information that you need to understand and know. So first and foremost, development budget. Let's break down what a development budget is. Anything and everything that costs you for developing that game is counted as your development budget. Now this term is a bit very on the surface level. We have to deep dive into what actually goes under development. Naturally, the first cost that you can think of is people's salaries. Whoever is working on that game, their salaries need to be accounted in the development budget. But beyond that, there are some other aspects as well, which include your accounting, which include your hiring, which includes your office rent, which includes your electricity bill, which includes your Wi-Fi bill, which includes taxes. Every single thing goes down under your development budget. So let's break down each and every one of these aspects. All right. Let's start off with salaries. That's the most basic aspect of a development budget. So where do salaries go? Salaries are paid to the employees that work on that game. Even if you are an indie game developer or you are a solo game developer, you have to understand that there is still a cost of development budget associated with your game. You might be wondering that it's not going to cost me anything if I'm going just a solo developer working alone on my game, right? That's not true because you're using a computer system to develop that game, you're using electricity, you're using Wi-Fi. All of those things cost something. And additionally, if you are a solo game developer, chances are that you might end up working with freelancers on areas where you are not expert in. So that's why that is also accounted into the development budget. But let's assume that you have a team. All right, let's assume that there are team members working for you and you are paying them some amount of salary. Okay, let's assume for the sake of simplicity that you are paying each and every one of them $1,000. Of course, the cost varies from resource to resource. Some resources are cheaper, some resources are much more expensive. But for the sake of this example, let's assume that the cost of one resource is $1,000. All right, and like this, you have a development team of 10 people. Okay, so 10 multiplied by 1,000, that's about 10,000 US dollars per month. That is your cost of development for salaries. Okay, on top of that, let's assume that you're sitting in an office space. That office space is going to cost you maybe $500. These numbers are assumptions. These will and absolutely do vary based on geography, based on kind of resource that you are hiring, etc, etc. Okay, so just consider these numbers as pure examples, not real numbers. Okay, let's assume that the rent is $500 per month. Okay, so 10,000 plus 5,000 is equal to $10,500 so far. Now let's assume that we are going to use electricity, we are going to use internet, we are going to since there are 10 people sitting in an office space, they will require coffee, tea, sometimes snacks, etc, etc. All of that would cost you maybe yet another $500. Okay, so $10,000 plus $500 plus $500, that's about $11,000 so far. Okay, on top of that, now you might wonder that okay, your game is going to take you about 7 months of development time. Okay, so 11,000 multiplied by 7, that's about 77,000 US dollars for the development period of that game. Okay, that's the development budget of your game on an average that you are going to calculate. You can of course input your own numbers, you can change these numbers, change the resources, etc, etc, and come up with your own conclusion. But I'm just giving you a fair example of how does one calculate a development budget. Okay, now let's move ahead. Let's assume that your game is going to be launched in the 7th month, which means that you need to start some bit of your marketing efforts towards your game. Now, what does marketing mean? Marketing means either creating your social media pages, either there's a conference happening and you want to showcase your game. So going to the conference, coming back, that is one cost. Then staying at that conference venue or booking a hotel location, that's another cost, right? So all of that also is to be accounted in your game's development budget. Okay. So let's add to this. Okay. So far we've got about $77,000 just purely for salaries, rent, electricity, and other maintenance. Now let's assume that you are going to a conference. Okay, maybe it might be a local conference, it might be an international conference. You are visiting that conference to and fro. Flight ticket might cost you $500, $500 give or take. Then the accommodation might cost you maybe yet another $500, depending on how long you're staying. I'm not calculating to the teeth. These are just a fair bit of assumptions to be done. So there goes another $1,000, right? Which is 500 for flights and 500 for your accommodation. Then you go there, you have your lunch, dinner, etc. Maybe another 100 to $200 or so. Round figure, we'll still consider $500. Okay, so $77,000 plus 500 plus 500 plus 500. Okay, which goes out to $78,500. Okay, now the story doesn't end here. The story does not end here. See, when you're accounting for a game's development budget, you also have to account for delays. Okay. And in 99% of the cases, chances are that your game is going to get delayed. So, whatever you have planned for 7 months is probably not going to happen in 7 months. You might need some extra time. Okay. Let's assume that we are going to need another 3 months, okay, for development of the game. Okay, which means an added cost of 33,000 US dollars, which means 11,000 per month, in addition to the 7 months of development time that we've already done so far. Okay, so it's going to cost you another 33,000 US dollars, which means about, my math is a bit weak, but 70,000 plus 30,000 is about $100,000, and plus 3,000, that's about $103,000. Then plus $8,500, which is about something. This figure that you see on screen, that is the development budget. I'll just calculate it and then I'll show it to you on screen. Okay, so that's the cost of your overall project. Now, you also have to understand that while the game is under development, you are not going to earn anything, which means there is not going to be any kind of sales that you will be doing until unless your game is in early access, or you are doing pre-alpha, pre-orders or something. Not pre-alpha, pre-orders. You are doing pre-orders for your game. Till that point of time, your game is not going to earn any money, right? So you also have to understand one thing, that once your game goes out in the market, that's also not the end of the story. You have to then launch updates. You have to maintain that game, right? Which means that there is going to be yet another cost involved, right? And if this is where things get more interesting, right? Let's assume that you are targeting for PC platform. Okay, you are targeting for PC and console platform. Naturally, your say if you are a small team, your first target will be one platform. It can be either console, it can be either PC, right? PC can be the lowest hanging fruit, which is easier entry into the market. Console might take you some bit of time because you'll have to look at porting, testing, your various different functional tests, your epilepsy, etc., etc. All of those tests that you have to kind of go through to create a console game or ship a console game. Not even create. I'm saying talking about shipping a console game, right? So you have to plan out a release timeline, that your game is first going to go out on this platform, then it's going to go out on that platform, then the other platform, and so on and so forth. Which means again there is a cost associated with that development budget as well. That means now, if you don't have that much amount of money to cover the future updates, it means that you will have to generate enough sales from your game to cover the future development cost, right? Uh, if you are not confident that your game will recover that development budget, you have to ensure that you do have that amount of money with you to support the development of the game after it is launched. That's a very important thing that a lot of people miss out, is that you don't just need to account for game development till it's launched. You have to account for game development even after having your buffer. After launch, you need to have some sort of a development budget to support the game's development cost. Then in addition to that, you have your marketing costs involved, right? Marketing can be anything. It can be either, as I said, social media handles or your influencer marketing. You either pay some streamers to play your game, or all of that. If that happens organically, why not? I mean, that's the best case scenario. But in most cases, you have to have some sort of a marketing for your game. And I'm not saying that you need to just market anything. Inherently, your game needs to be good. That's a given. If you don't have a good game, no amount of marketing can save that game. You have to, before launch, ensure that your game is good and it is being accepted properly by the audience. And then again, games are a subjective art kind of thing. So it's a given that you may not be able to assume if your game is good or not. So you have to rely on public's feedback. This feedback can be taken either from the showcases that you do, which is the conferences that I mentioned, or after launch. However, after launch, if your game is not good at day one, chances are that you might face a bit of backlash. So you have to ensure that your game is at least 80% good to play. I mean, people will always have negative feedback. That's a given. No matter how good of a game you make, people will always have negative feedback. That is something that you need to fit in over here, that no matter what you do, no matter what you do, people will talk negative about your game. So you don't have to worry about that, but you just have to ensure that at least 80% of that feedback is positive. If that is there, then you can work towards it and you can kind of improve your game as you go, right? Now let's come back. Let's we kind of digress there a bit, but let's come back to the topic of covering your development budget after the game is launched, right? So you have to factor that in as well. So let's assume that your game is going to take about 5 months of time to recover the development budget, right? Based on the sales. So you have to either plan out a runway for your game, runway in the sense that you have to have sales targets to ensure that you are generating enough revenue so that either you can generate that money and reinvest it in your monthly budgets, or you already have that money with you that you can use to support the development of the game, right? So lots of things. It's really a complicated journey. It's not at all easy to create a game, let alone maintain it, right? So these are the nuances. These are the nitty gritties that go under a game development cycle, and these are the costs that are involved while you're developing a game. It goes deeper and deeper. Really, there is no amount of full stop that you can put to this conversation. It is indeed an endless conversation, and I can actually go on and on about more details that go into picture. In fact, I'll just also touch base upon one more aspect that is covered in the development budget is your hardware. You see, as I said, you've got 10 people. 10 people need systems to work on, and those also cost some money. So maybe let's assume you got $2,000 worth of system for each one of the staff members. That becomes an initial cost of $20,000 there itself, right? That is also accounted into development budget. So what are your thoughts? Are you a game developer? How do you account for your development budgets? Let me know in the comment section. I'd be happy to read them out. And if you're finding my channel for the first time, hit the subscribe button. I'm a game developer by profession, and I keep making these videos around game development. And if you like this video, hit the like button, and I'll see you in my next one. Until then, take care.